So in the previous video, I showed you guys how to tear all the tin wrapped around the engine off, including the radiator and all that. Now we're going to start tearing the engine out. Now I already took the carburetor off because I needed to put it on another one of my tractors. Ironically, this is the exact same tractor or engine carburetor that will fit on my Minneapolis UTN or UTU. And to take that off, well, obviously you got your two bolts right there on this updraft carburetor. Then you're going to have a choke cable that's clamped down with this screw. It's usually just a flathead. And then this one clamps down clamps down the casing. This one clamps down the wire that protrudes out. This one's just a flathead screw as well. And this here is your throttle linkage that connects right here to it, or this lever with a pin. And as you can see, it operates that. And then your fuel line, that's generally a 1/2 inch line on these units. Sometimes it's a little bit different, but and we got it. And the throttle cable or throttle rod right here goes all the way back to a lever right there. If you hold on, this throttle lever right here, that one connects up to your steering wheel right there. But all that's held on by is a very small hairpin that you just have to bend back straight and then pull out. And through that, or once you get that off, your throttle rod should just come right through this here hole. And if you're like me, you got one that's bent all over the place. Expertly cataloged on the floor. And after you get that off, you got to get your fuel tank off. It really helps if you got this thing just empty or just about. What you can do is if you got a lot of gas, is open up your shutoff valve on your sediment bowl and just run a hose off the end of this, or off the end of your fuel line, down into a gas tank on the floor. I have it pretty low from the last time I was running it, or when it locked up. I didn't have much gas in it anyway, so I ain't worried. And what you gotta do to get your gas tank off is, I get the light to cooperate, you got to get these clamps taken off. It really helps if you lube them up before you start trying to take them off. Apparently I was trying to clamp that down. My bad, everybody does that occasionally. And yeah, you gotta take both of them off, and I'll just skip to the point where I got them both off. And once you got your tank strap off, just two little bolts or nuts that hold it on, all you have to do is just lift it right up. And then to get it off the front, or it is mounted to the back of the engine using 9/16 bolts. You just got to pop those two bolts. Here's this is the first one. And this is the second one right here. And all you gotta do is take those off. Now I will remove. Now once you got your bolts out, like I have here, it's already fell. You're gonna wanna set your bolts that you just took out somewhere safe. That way you don't lose them. I put them right here because we're gonna need them once we get this engine disconnected to be able to lift this thing. Alright, now that the fuel tank is out, it's going to look a lot like this. Now, you're going to want to get the temperature sensor removed. And that is a 11/16. Sometimes it might be a bear to get out of there, but you never know. Sometimes they're easy, sometimes they ain't. And this one apparently isn't one of the easy ones. Ugh. Apparently I'm just taking the whole thing out. And apparently I'm just taking this whole piece, including the adapter. Yep. 1 second. Okay. So it would appear as this sensor does not want to come out. So, because I need a new gauge on this tractor anyways, we're just going to cut the line. And as you can see, it is kind of just a solid core line, or what? Wire, cable, I'm not sure what it is. But the gauge is a little messed up. I'm not sure why, other than the fact that it's over 70 years old. So we're just going to bend that right out of the way. Then what you need to do is you need to take the starter off. That'll help make it easier to get in to your bell housing. All you have to do is just take the 5/8 nut off of it, and then just make sure you put your nut and lock washer back on there, as it is brass. At least I'm pretty sure it's brass. I don't know. It's different amongst different owners. All right, now with that cable out of the way, you can just let it dangle. We're going to need 5/8 and a 9/16 with a wobble on it. Or you can just use a really long extension cord, or extension, if you so choose to. You're going to need a 5/8 for this nut down here. Now what you got to do, just apparently this requires both hands. My bad. Okay, I got the lower one out, and then we just got to do okay then. It might help if you break them loose a bit. Alright, and now make sure you don't lose where your nuts go. They might come important. You never know. And unlike John Deere's, just because this is green doesn't mean it's a John Deere. There ain't no bastard bolt hidden behind here that requires a special wrench, because John Deere has to be infinitely smarter and make it so that way you have to buy their specific tools in order to work on half their shit. Alright, and last one. As you can see, it's quite literally just falling out. And I just gotta get that out. Alright, set that on the ground, put that in the box. Now, try it. Holy, this thing's heavy. Oh. Them 6-volt starters ain't no joke. Yeah. Not terrible. I've definitely seen a worse clutch, or definitely seen a worse ring gear. My bad. This makes for a bit more complicated for what I wanted to do. But, oh well. Party must go on. Now, what we need to do is get this clutch clutch throw rod taken off. I believe that's all how it comes apart. I believe how it comes apart is loosen that, and it should. No, it is not. Okay, this adds a little bit more confusion. Okay, next step is you gotta take, I believe you gotta take these two little screws on the back of this, all on the back of that plate for focus for 1 second. Yeah, there's 2 screws back here. They might have to come out. I'm not 100% sure. Let me try and get... Okay, I'm not entirely sure how to get the clutch rod off. I believe it will just come off if the engine moves forward. So, going to try and get the bell housing removed from this unit, which it should just be should just be a handful of bolts. You don't have to worry about the engine dropping down. It's mounted on 4 points, there and there, to the frame. So this bell housing, in theory, should be able to just pop off. Theory. Now I need to get this bolt, and at least this one, out. Oh, there's another one down here underneath the shaft. I will go to that side. Alright, now what we have here is 2 through bolts, which means they go all the way through this mounting tab right here. And I've already taken this here core unit off, or unbolted it. I just need to get it out of the way. And what should be on that side, there should be 1/2-inch head. Okay, once you get this bolt out, you don't necessarily need to get this one off. It just mounts your power steering unit. Probably wouldn't hurt to take it off. This bolt does absolutely nothing. Probably did something at some point, but I don't know what it does right now. But this one, or these 2 bolts right here, hold your power steering unit. Only one that holds the bell housing on is down here, but there's 2 underneath this on the belly. So I will go ahead and try to get those out. They are very greasy. Okay, I believe I have now gotten all the bell housing bolts. It just developed a bit of a gap right here in between the block and the bell housing. Now there is a coupler right down in here. It's kind of a pain to see, but it would be right in here. It would be this thing right here. There is a coupler. You gotta take 2 bolts out of that coupler. They both go alternate directions. The alternate directions helps keep it stuck and tight. You gotta take that off, so that way you can pull this drive line, your drive shaft out right here. And I will try to get that out. Okay, well, it would appear that this bell housing, or this shaft, is frozen into that coupler down in there. You know, you can see it better from this side, this coupler. So, looks like I'm going to have to pull the engine and then figure out how to get it, or then it'll all be apart. Hopefully. You can't guarantee anything while doing this. So mechanically, to do that, you gotta unbolt your steering shaft and hope and pray it comes apart. Because these are kind of iffy on whether they will or won't come off. And it would appear there's a bit of a joint right down in there. But you need to remove your wiring harness from the engine, which it goes all the way in back behind here. Then you gotta take this nut loose, which I should be able to do that. Apparently here we are. Should be able to get it with just a pair of pliers. I can get it. Yeah, there we go. Once you get it broke loose, it usually just comes right off. I apologize for poor quality. Trying to do all of this one-handed. And when you get that out, make sure you put your nuts, washers, whatnot back in back where they came from. Just make sure you don't lose anything. And once you got that off, this should, apparently there is a mounting tab right there that holds the wiring in. Not a big deal. We'll just bend that little doohickey out of the way. Almost any pair of pliers works. I just happen to use side snips. And once you got that cut or broke free, should be able to just flop right out. Now what is this? Well, can't forget about your oil pressure gauge, but I'm just not sure where in this mess it attaches. I'm not entirely sure where in this mess it attaches to the tractor. So I'm going to do a little bit of digging, trying to dig all this dirt and garbage out of there. Okay, after many frustrating words with this tractor and many persuasive smacks with a hammer, I finally got this shaft disconnected from the U-joint. And in order to be able to get it off that U-joint, I had to take out the 3 bolts on this power steering system. And for some reason, it still won't come out. So what I got to do now, take it apart up here. Joy. I will be back in a second. Well, I managed to get this freed up from the bell housing. A little thermal persuasion. About the only way that bolt was getting out of there, because somebody put it in backwards for some reason, because people are infinitely wise, apparently. Now that's off, has access to get the oil pressure line off, and also there it gives you access to the bolt head that's underneath all this dirt and garbage. So I'm going to clean that out, but first probably ought to unattach this power steering setup from this valve cover, and all it takes to do that is just pop this. I believe that's all it takes, just to pop this bolt or nut off, and that is a 9/16, which I put it in the box, maybe. I did. So, gotta break this free. Oh, it would appear that it is indeed a nut. This may or may not go well. Okay, now I will go and pick the pot up off. Okay, that. Oh, God. Jesus. Apparently there was still fluid in that thing. And somehow I managed to pop it off. It's just the low flow return. Alright, I'm going to clean this up right quick. I will be back in a minute. Okay, well, I managed to get that all cleaned out right there. There's your oil pressure port. And if you follow your line, it goes all the way up into your gauge. How somebody managed to put the bolt in that spot backwards, I have not the slightest clue. There wasn't enough room to put it in there in the first place, but it's whatever. Now with that power steering mount off, I already took the oil pressure line off. I just bent it back. Then I realized that there is one bolt on the side of the bell housing down deep into there. I had to dig that out. And I already took both sides off. Now that that bolt is free, this bell housing just slides backwards. And in theory, this once take all four of these mount bolts out, this whole unit should slide forward and then just lift right out. Now you're going to want to make yourself a couple of lifting plates like I have, and they do not match, or you can't take this plate and put it up front right there, because this one fits just about to the edges of both edges of the plate. This one relatively close together. All I did was just take a torch and some 6-inch wide plate, just notched a hole in it. Each of these are about a foot long, and so that's what you really need to be able to pick it up. Or you can figure out some way to get a chain on it. I just figured that using lifting plates would be far easier, you know. Just make sure you put a little bit of a crown right at the top there, so it kind of just settles in there with your hook. It doesn't want to move side to side too much. So now got to get the 4, I believe all that's left now is to get the 4 mounting bolts out, and they go straight through to a nut on the bottom. Same way up. These front 2 are easy to get to the bottom side of it from the outside, or from the outside of the frame rail. These rear 2, you have to go underneath with a wrench up into there. They're kind of a pain to get out. So I will work on getting these mounting bolts out so that way I can lift the engine out. So, well, I got the bolts out on both sides of the rear end of the engine. Front ones are still there, but when you go to try and take the rear ones out, I highly recommend getting one of these swivel sockets. That's about the only thing that I could get that would fit in there, because it is such a tight fit. I will show you in a second. That there is the spot, or the rear bolt mounts. It is such a royal pain to try and get up in there. There's not really hardly any space in here to do anything. So that's why I highly recommend the swivel sockets. Not swivel joints, because they didn't exactly fit, even with the short. Swivel sockets, that seems to fit the best. Now, alright, I've got all 4 engine mount bolts taken out. I've already got the picker set up. I just want to say this: if you ever need an engine lift chain, get one of these trailer hitch chains. Like, they work great. I mean, they've got giant hooks, you know, and they got giant hooks at both ends. So you can pretty much just hook onto whatever you want. And if you don't need the hook, you just take your chain and do that, run a bolt through it, you're good to go. You know, it's pretty good setup for lifting. Okay, so maybe don't necessarily lift off this little bracket right here, but it's freed up. Now just to pop it loose. Let's see. Not really much good places to pry on this thing from. Give me a second. Well, after 2 hours of fighting with this thing, prying on it, yanking it back and forth, I finally got it out. And I managed to get the, apparently. Okay, so I may have forgotten a step doing this whole spiel. I forgot that I need to take that shaft out first, which is probably part of the reason I was fighting with this thing so much. That is the live PTO shaft. This is the transmission drive shaft. And how you can tell. See, that inner set of teeth, that is where your live PTO goes in. These outer sets right here, that is your drive shaft. So that shaft, this inner one goes all the way to the PTO. This one right here is just a sleeve that drives your transmission. Now the inner one goes all the way back here to this unit. Honestly, I bet if I would have disengaged the PTO, it probably wouldn't have fought me as hard. So yeah, now I got this out. Next stop is to see if this flywheel will fit on its new engine. I have no idea if it will or not. This is all kind of new territory for me or most anyone, as far as I know. But the PTO shaft, or the live PTO shaft, goes directly into this flywheel. It does not go into the clutch. The drive shaft goes into the clutch right here. So I think that's where I'm going to leave this for the moment. Yeah, actually, well, I gotta pull the PTO to be able to get this bell housing out. I mean, finally came free, so it's got that going for it. But I gotta pull the PTO shaft, or PTO drive. Hopefully it doesn't have a bunch of oil in there, because I don't want to. Hopefully it's a dry clutch system to engage and disengage the PTO, because I really don't feel like making a gigantic mess or having to figure out what to do with a transmission full of oil, because that's pretty expensive trying to refill these things. But I'm going to set this engine down that way it ain't just hanging here overnight. And I reckon that's where I'm going to leave this video. Yes, I know I'm an idiot for forgetting about the live PTO, I'm an idiot for forgetting to take the live PTO shaft out. But this is also the first Oliver I've ever messed with. So, alright, I'm going to leave this video here. If you like it, subscribe. If you don't, you don't. You know, it's up to you. I ain't going to force you to do nothing. Feel free to comment on what I should have done differently, just so I have future reference. See ya.